Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Now, as we all know, with today's overcrowded release schedules all year round, it is becoming a constant battle for studios to keep their tentpole pictures in the spotlight. And even though yesterday was supposed to be all about The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with its trailer debut, X-Men Days of Future Past made some major headlines towards the end of the day, and some could say even stole the spotlight away. And that was with the announcement via Bryan Singer's Twitter account that X-Men Apocalypse has been greenlit for 2016. And later in the day, it was confirmed by Fox that they are setting aside the May 27th, 2016 date for an Apocalypse film. This is huge news, no matter how you look at it, for both comic book movies in general and the X-Men franchise. Now, one could argue maybe this is a move of desperation. As I've noted before, they'll make these big announcements about potential follow-up films being definitely coming because they want to give you the mentality of this train is leaving the station with or without you, so you better get on it. But I tend to think that that would happen closer to the release date. This has been announced so far out from X-Men Days of Future Past release date, which is coming out in May 2014, that it leads me to believe that the suits at Fox are looking at this footage and how the picture's coming together, and they're so pleased with it, they're like, let's just greenlight this next one so you guys don't have to miss a step, and we can make that release date. As we also know, it is a struggle for studios to keep these pictures coming out fast enough to hold audience interest. Gone are the days where, we still have some exceptions to the rule, obviously, but when Marvel is churning out 2 to 3 pictures a year, all the other competing studios now want to get their franchises also almost on a yearly basis or as close to it as they can get it. For instance, The Hobbit has a movie coming out every Christmas for 3 years straight. So let's assume that X-Men Days of Future Past looks great, and they can't wait to bring Apocalypse. Now, many of you have written me, actually, that Apocalypse is a dream person for you to see in the X-Men films. I remember one person in particular said they would love to have the sophistication in an X-Men film where you show ancient Egypt, where Apocalypse began his journey, and bring that into the mythos on the mutant, or I guess X-Men cinematic universe mythos. But the thing we have to all think about as well is that it's a very sophisticated storytelling if it's pulled off correctly. We don't want it to come across as, for instance, a Paul W.S. Anderson kind of film, with the way he handles like the Resident Evil mythology and stuff. But granted, those films have their fans, but not the level of fandom that an X-Men movie currently has and would like to maintain. So that's one concern, whether or not Bryan Singer and company have the chops to handle that. Now, after X2, I would have said, for sure, but Bryan Singer's had a few missteps since then, and so is the X-Men franchise. So it's hard to know exactly if they can do it. Now, the other concern is that Apocalypse has a very similar visual look to Thanos. So I'm curious if you guys think Marvel is like, uh-oh, because they're going to have 2 villains, and Apocalypse will hit theaters before Thanos now, with the pushing Thanos back to Avengers 3. So you don't want to have a situation where you introduce your big bad, like the final boss level, as Kevin Feige has said, and have everyone go, mainstream moviegoers who are unfamiliar with comics, go, hey, that looks like Apocalypse. That would just not be good. However, one of the things that I think is great about Apocalypse is that it will give the X-Men movies a big bad, and something they haven't really had since they made Magneto almost immediately an anti-hero, because Ian McKellen was so likable in the role, and Michael Fassbender is equally likable. Now, of course, he has his evil moments still, but I think he's more of a Loki-type character at this point. You forgive him because you don't, who wants their favorite character to be truly evil? But having an Apocalypse character will give the X-Men movies a chance to have that pure evil that is so important, when trying to build up or raise the stakes. Also, some people said when they heard the Apocalypse news, this was in reference to the Age of Apocalypse crossover, like almost a year-long event from a couple decades ago in the X-Men comics. It was a fantastic crossover event. It remains one of the greatest alternate universe story timelines ever. But I have to say, I don't think that's how anyone would start. I think that might be when people, non-comic book readers or casual comic book readers hear Apocalypse, they think, oh, Age of Apocalypse. And also, would it be funny if we had an Age of Apocalypse and Age of Ultron coexisting? That's what happens when one publisher has to split up their movies between 2 studios, because, when they were both Ages of on the pages of Marvel, that was okay. But I think having an eventual Age of Apocalypse storyline might work and be fascinating, but at the same time, when you're coming off of a time travel story like X-Men Days of Future Past, I think they're just going to have to go for straight Apocalypse origin story, and let's just see if Bryan Singer and company can pull it off. All right, huge news. The second story of the day is that Transformers Age of Extinction, Transformers 4, has finished shooting. And this was made as a casual announcement, just inadvertently. It wasn't as if, it wasn't as, shouting from the rooftops as Bryan Singer's tweet. But it was in funny circumstances because Bay had included this in an entry he had on his blog, which was entitled, oh yes, I do not apologize for any Transformers movies. And I don't think Michael Bay needs to with all those Benjamins backing him up. But he noted that Transformers 4 Age of Extinction has finished shooting. They had a 5.5-month long shoot with 1 whole month in China. And I think that no matter what you might think of Michael Bay's end product, I think anybody has to respect the amount of work he puts into making his movies. And he puts it all up on screen too, which I also really admire. You see all the work up there. Again, you might not agree with it creatively, but I think that the technical expertise really shines through, and his dedication to putting out what he feels is the best film possible is, exemplary. So the other big news is that he's saying that they're working on they're transitioning to the edit room, and the next big thing when we will see footage is for the Super Bowl. So now we know what our big movie will be for the Super Bowl. There's always one movie that takes up all the conversation. A number of trailers usually debut, but there's one trailer that everyone is like, I can't go to the bathroom or get a snack. I can't leave this television. I'll have to go during the game because I don't want to miss the Transformers 4 commercial. Trailer debut online. So I think that's very exciting. I think it's a great idea for them to debut then, and I have high hopes for Transformers 4. I think they can maybe really rejuvenate this franchise with Mark Wahlberg and company. All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third story of the day is that Sacha Baron Cohen is making another movie, even after The Dictator didn't do so well. He's kind of been on a downward slope since his high with Borat. Bruno, not as great as Borat, and then The Dictator, not as great as Bruno. But what's interesting about his upcoming film is that he's brought on his first regular director, and that's Louis Leterrier, who directed The Incredible Hulk, and then most recently, Now You See Me, which is one of the biggest hits of 2013. It's made well over $100 million, and a much smaller budget than its competitors. So that already has a sequel greenlit. But Leterrier is going to be coming over here and working with Sacha Baron Cohen, who usually is working with Larry Charles and more reality TV kind of like looser directors. But this new film called Grimsby is going to be his first time making more of a traditional film. And the story is about a black ops agent in the UK who has to go on the run with his estranged brother, a Northern England soccer hooligan. So I'm not quite sure who Sacha Baron Cohen will play. I think it would be great if he played both. I'm a big Sacha Baron Cohen fan. I think he's great. I've even liked some of the supporting roles he's done. He was in Hugo, but that wasn't a starring vehicle, obviously, with Scorsese, but I thought he was good there. I thought he was good in Les Mis. He kind of sometimes I guess can be accused of doing the same thing, but that's his thing. So it works. But I'm curious to see how he handles doing like a more traditional comedy, the likes of like maybe say Adam Sandler, that kind of, trying to get in a groove. All right, so those are the three stories of the day. The viewer question comes from Star Wars Customizer 12 with a Z, Customizer. Question. I noticed for movies like Star Wars, Episode 7, you have been saying that they should cast lesser known or completely new actors for it. But other movies like Man of Steel 2, or whatever they're calling it, you are saying they need more well-known actors. When should they cast well-known actors, and when should they cast unknowns? Excellent question, Star Wars Customizer 12, because I did mention yesterday with the news about Callan Mulvey for being considered for Lex Luthor, that I thought with Gal Gadot and him that Man of Steel didn't quite have the star power it needed. And so what I'm saying is that if you have an exciting newcomer, that's always great because you can build around a lot of hype about this person's debut. So I think that that's when you can have newcomers, and you have a really great brand that you can, get people excited about, which obviously is Star Wars. And you don't want to take away from that. You don't want people to say, hey, look, it's so-and-so in a Star Wars movie. You want them to just be like, it's Star Wars, and totally buy into that universe. And also, I'm counting on the fact that they're going to be bringing back their original three, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford, to bring in that star power. I think that would be great. Also, as I said, if they could get Daniel Day-Lewis in there, that's your Alec Guinness. So that's the kind of thing I'm thinking for Star Wars. And then when you have a movie like Man of Steel, which has questionable history, I think people were divided on Man of Steel, and has questionable quality going forward in terms of the writing at least, I think you need maybe some star power to make people a little more at ease. My other thing is that Gal Gadot and Callan Mulvey aren't really unknowns. They're more failed actors. So I think that, if you take an actor that really hasn't worked and doesn't have any buzz, I mean, we're not even talking about like Ben Foster in Warcraft, who hasn't been a star of a big movie but has his fan base. He's been legitimized by critics and fans. So you can just argue he hasn't gotten the right chance yet. But nobody is really a fan of either Gal Gadot or Callan Mulvey. So you're really just kind of taking C-level actors and trying to, shine them up and present them as exciting A-listers. So that's where I'm coming from on that. These aren't cult actors that you can point to. They aren't totally new. So my problem is more that these are just kind of like, actors that just didn't work out. So I feel that Man of Steel should be above that. But if you can find a true unknown, a discovery, that's exciting in and of itself. But neither of these casting decisions are true unknowns. So that's why I feel, Gal Gadot is coming off of a huge franchise, Fast and Furious, and Callan Mulvey was, Callan Mulvey was in Zero Dark 30 already, and he's been around, and I just feel not that again, it seems like they're making like a almost like a TNT or Stars. Yes, that's what, okay, like, and I know Stars channel has its fans, but it seems like they're casting a Stars television movie than one of the biggest movies potentially of all time. All right, so that's today's morning movie news. Thank you so much for everybody for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's 3 top stories, the viewer question, and what you'd like to see covered on Monday, and any questions you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.